Suffolk Community Legislation Committee meeting. Everyone please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for coming out tonight. We have an excellent guest speaker with us tonight. Now I'll give that introduction to the kids here. Our district superintendent, David.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Excited to be back for our first community legislative committee meeting of the 2023-24 school year. We have a veteran guest speaker of this committee. I think you're probably one of the first that we ever had here, Senator. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to read a little bit of that sheet so the audience who doesn't already know you and kind of hear about your very interesting background. So you graduated from the Broadcast Institute of Maryland in 1985, and then in 10 years worked in radio and television throughout Delaware, in Maryland, Pennsylvania, and New York. And this is one of my favorites. While living in Pennsylvania, Senator played 5 seasons of semi-pro football with the Chambersburg Cardinals and the York Lions. And if you heard us talking about the Jets and the Giants earlier, maybe you could throw your hat in the ring. A little bit of help. In 1997, he took entrepreneurial lead, started your own advertising agency to get this advertising agency for 25 years, nearly 25 years. He published several specialties, 3 publications, and through this business, not only were you able to create multiple jobs, but also have the satisfaction of knowing that helping people find new jobs is career while also working in law enforcement. The senator was first elected to the assembly actually in the special election in February 2010 and re-elected by a comfortable margin in November of the same year. And following a brief 2-year break, returned back to the assembly in 2015 when you served another 4 years. While in the assembly, the senator led the fight to repeal the NTA payroll tax, eliminate saltwater fish license fees, passed the largest middle-class tax cut in decades, and adopt the iStop program, which helped fight serious problems with prescription drug abuse. Senator has committed himself to serve his community in various ways. An active member of the Chamber of Commerce chapters throughout the county, served as a board member of the Patchogue Medford Youth Community Services, the Focus East Patchogue Civic Association, and was a member of the Suffolk County Police Reserves, and also served in the Suffolk County Workforce Investment. Senator isn't the only one that has made the commitment to community and country. He's extremely proud of his son, Anthony D. Murray, who served 6 years in the Maryland Air National Guard, including tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we thank him for his service. The senator was elected to represent Senate District 3 in November 2022. We're glad to have you back in office, sir, and continues to live in East Patchogue with his dog Pete. Might have the best Pete of the evening. And I had to add, even though this wasn't in the bio, if you're not aware, the senator is a staunch advocate for CTU services in general, but really BOCES in general, and all the work that we do for the students of our region. So, Senator, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Boy, it's interesting hearing your own body. You mentioned the specialty publications in my company that I did. The 2 that we focused on primarily, one was the Long Island Job Finder, it's an employment newspaper and website. The other one was the Long Island Fugitive Finder, which is like America's Most Wanted, but we worked with local police, Nassau and Suffolk Police. They send us our most wanted criminals and we put them up. Both of those websites are still up, but we don't do publications anymore. But the reason I bring that up, specifically the Long Island Job Finder, is for a couple of decades, I would spend a lot of time talking almost daily to human resources directors, people about the struggles they have in hiring, what they're looking for. And people don't think about the cost to the companies of hiring, but also the reason it is so expensive and tough to hire is the training that goes with it. And I bring that up because of the training you can get through BOCES and through career training programs. You know, for years and years, you hear, you have to go to college, you have to do this, that's your career path. no, that's, you know, college is great, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't go to college, but I'm saying that BOCES and your CTE programs are really a diamond in the rough, because, you know, if you do go to college and you focus on one particular, career path, usually when you get down near the end, you get an internship somewhere. Well, what's the purpose of the internship? It's to get the training. It's to learn more about, get hands-on experience, and then that can possibly lead to employment. Well, you're getting hands-on experience with your education at BOCES and your CTE classes. This is where you are maybe deciding what you want to do in a trade, and you're getting that, literally getting that hands-on experience. So when I would talk to the HR directors and talk about what they're looking for, one of the first things they would say is somebody that knows what they're doing. You know, that gives you such a step forward over everyone else, having that kind of career training and you know, getting your feet wet, if you will, and you know, having the hands-on experience. It really does give you a tremendous advantage. So I've long been, as David said, long been a fan of BOCES and CTE. And the good news is, in Albany, there seems to be a bit of a shift now. You know, when Governor Cuomo was in office, he literally made the statement. He said, you cannot succeed if you don't go to college. You have to go to college to succeed. Well, it's not true. It certainly does help. And these are not mutually exclusive. Many students go to BOCES and then go on to college. Many times it can be for example, you'll get your training at BOCES doing electrician, you know, something like that, getting training for that. And then you want to open your own electrician company or something. So you go to college, you take classes, you learn how to do that, maybe accounting or bookkeeping, you go to marketing, things like this. The two can go together. But the training and the education you get at BOCES, it's irreplaceable. So I think that it is starting to change the way people are looking at BOCES, and the CT programs are starting to change. I think Albany is starting to recognize more and more just how valuable and just how important it is. And we're starting to see people want to make more of an investment in our career training programs. So I think we're turning the corner, but we need to continue to keep the pressure on in Albany with our leaders. And that goes through things like advocacy and, you know, your legislative committees and, you know, lobbying and pushing and just sharing success stories and some of the successes you're having here. So hopefully I'll see many of you up in Albany this coming year. That's my brief statement. Any questions? Good.
I actually had a conversation with, Steve on the subject of health leaders. And we started to speak about, you know, training programs, electrician programs. And he started to say, well, we should have that at Suffolk Community College, and why wouldn't we do that? And I looked at him and I said, why would we? Why would we have students be paying college tuition for those programs when they are pretty much sitting right in front of their faces? And he said, what do you mean? And out east, with the help of BOCES, we put on a program, you know, with all the programs represented. And, you know, it wasn't as successful or well attended as I would have liked. Everybody in BOCES said it was success. You know, I might be a success.
You said the same time.
Yeah, I have a lot. Well, it was actually, I mean, 4 or 5 students have definitely, you know, chosen programs which may not have before, they're in there this year. But I said to him, do you not understand what is available? Well, they said, well, how do you get the, he said, well, how do you get the right school? And I said, Mr. Christie, we need to talk. So how, if we have a Suffolk County legislature who doesn't understand how the CTA in the high school work, or if you want to go as a senior in high school and finish it next year after you graduate, you can do that. How on earth do we convince parents when we have, you know, our Suffolk County legislature that want to put these very same programs in Suffolk Community College? I don't know how to do that. I've been working on this. And my board was asked the last 3 years, and they've started hearing me. So, do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I know, as I said, it's starting to permeate more in Albany, because of course, that's where you wanna lobby, that's where the funding comes from and all of this, so, I think maybe it's a case of having to focus on the local legislators to let them know what's available. I know you do quite a bit of outreach and all, I think it's just, I think they need to be a little more aggressive in learning what is available here. I know, there were some culinary programs, I believe, out of Riverhead or out east that, were tremendous, so a little surprised he wasn't a little more aware of that, but,
I was aware of some of them, I have to say, but I don't think we realize the scope of what can be accomplished with the number of programs that are available.
you know what, I would be more than happy to work with you to do and host like an open house for legislators on all levels, to invite them in to tour and do something like that, because I think that Fred Thiel and I did that several times. We would go on tours together with different CT programs and all. Man, I gotta tell you,
South Fork, I know that.
yeah, you walk out of that and you're just blown away. I mean, I'm excited, want to spread the word with everybody. So I think I'd be more than happy to work with you, and maybe we can set something up where we can host an open house for lawmakers on all levels. Whether it be, I would even extend it down to the town level as well, invite some of the town.
I had some very good success with Supervisor Russell. He's an advocate, good advocates all over. He will be retiring this year, and I probably still haven't seen him.
Exactly, right.
So, I also said next time, it's supposed to be, you are going to these quick graduations with me, I shall pick you up, and we will go, and you will see. Because it is one of the graduations where everything is announced. It's license, that license, this one's going here, this scholarship is here, and it certainly opened my eyes to me as though. So, but thank you, I will.
Yeah, we'll definitely work together on that.
All right, thank you.
I also recommend doing some, I just met with some of the libraries and stuff down there, and we were thinking of how can they get the word out about some of the things that they offer. And I think through social media, doing testimonials, maybe with some of the students who are about to graduate or previous graduates that have gone through and gone on to have success stories, have them come up with little clips on social media and just sharing it. This is, I couldn't have been there without this kind of thing. And just letting people know, because I really do, I think you're right. There is a challenge out there that a lot of people just don't know what is available and how valuable it is. I mean, I say it everywhere I go, but I think we need to get it out more.
There are certain schools that do take advantage of the program, which is wonderful. The ones out east, even though it's only some, most of them, not most, so a lot of them, Riverhead, they don't take advantage as much as I would like to see. Thanks.
Sure.
Anyone else?
Go ahead.
So, as we get closer to the state budget process, what do you see as the biggest challenges?
You're not gonna want to hear this. I can think of, let me see, a little over 9 billion challenges we're gonna have this year because we are facing a deficit. Unfortunately, listen, I don't wanna slam anybody in particular, but I think over the last couple of years, through the COVID money that came through the federal government, I think it was spent as though that would be recurring funds. It's not. It was a one-time shot. So rather than investing that and getting returns, it was just spent, which was a huge mistake, and now we're paying the price. Next year is going to be an extremely challenging year as far as even holding at with what we have. It's going to be tough. It's going to be very, very challenging. That is our biggest challenge by far is financial. And that's unfortunate. I'm kind of equating this to back in 2010-11. You remember what happened then? That was not pretty. It could be right about that level where we could actually see cuts, unfortunately. It's just that somehow we've got to get through this. And I'm not hearing any brilliant answers out there about how to do it. So we're just going to have to get creative. Boy, what a downer that was. No, the answer was the downer, the question, that's why.
I'm sorry, I do have another question, if somebody else has one right now. You were just talking about the saltwater fishing licenses, and isn't New York one of the last 2 or 3 states that has these saltwater fishing licenses? Because I was just at a meeting of my hunting and fishing club, and, you know, the topic of having to pay for the saltwater fishing licenses came up, and we're one of the few states that doesn't have that
Now we are.
right now, yeah.
We had, it was imposed back in, around 11/12, right around that, was, the governor imposed that, which was an obvious, it was a way to grab money from Long Island. I mean, it was that simple. And then we were able to reverse that. One of the few times I've ever seen a tax actually reversed.
We're gonna have to pay them,
No.
no? We're gonna plug up the budget, that's $15 a person, is it gonna?
They're gonna get a lot of pushback if they try that.
They
again,
already are,
because it was
we've
huge.
already pushed back.
Yeah,
Okay, so you think we might be at least another year, 3 years?
I think it'd be fine. I think it'd be fine. And if not, then again, it's an obvious target on Long Island. Unfortunately, Long Island gets looked at as the piggy bank. They think that we are just extremely wealthy down here. They don't understand that there's a difference in the cost of living between here and upstate, quite a bit. So when we hear things like TAP, the tuition assistance program, the fact that we have not changed the levels of the thresholds for qualifying in decades. So it's still $80,000 per household, which is absurd. For Long Island, I mean, upstate, that might be fine, but for Long Island, it's just not fair. I would like to see that indexed by the AMI, the area median income. Index it by that way we can make it fair. So down here, that level could be up to about, in fact, I introduced legislation, co-sponsored with Senator Stavisky to increase to 120,000, the threshold. Because I think it shouldn't be 120 statewide, again, it should be indexed to the cost of living to make it fairer for Long Island. But we'll see.
It's on the foundation, that's our fire department and how we import OCs into the picture with the armory, which now we don't, right?
Yeah.
For $1.
Yeah, that was a good move. That took a little wrangling there because there are rules and regulations as to who can own it, who can be given this and who can then rent it somewhere else. So we had to do a little shuffling there to get that through, but yeah, the armory it was basically left empty. And at first we thought it was gonna go straight to the town, then the fire department wanted some, so we were able to kind of split the space there. And then what we had to do was go, I think it was through the town to the fire department, and then the fire department would then lease the space, and I think it was $1. I think. So it took a lot, but otherwise that was gonna be a building that was just gonna be mothballed. And what's the point? I mean, let's use it. I think that's one of our biggest challenges we face on Long Island is, look, we're losing population. We want to keep our next generation here through things like OCs. We can hopefully do that by offering career training and opportunities, but we also need to give them housing. We also need to be able to stay here while also keeping the environment in mind. Keeping in mind that we're on a single source aquifer. We don't want to keep knocking down trees and digging holes and all of this when we already have existing buildings. So when the governor was going around talking about the housing issue and saying, well, I just want to be able to plop anything down anywhere I want, put a near train station up. You can't do that either. There is a lot of planning that goes along with it, whether it's what you do with your waste, whether it's septic, whether it's transportation, parking, even students in the schools, without overwhelming some of the schools. There's so many things that go into this, and the planning is important. You have to go through the local governments to do it. But she was right in one thing, keeping it near the railroads, keeping it near transportation hubs is a good idea. But I was talking to the mayor of Patchogue, Paul Montieri, and he said, you know, if you jump on the Patchogue train line or the Ronkonkoma train line and you take a ride in the city and just look out the window the whole ride, you know what you're gonna see? You're gonna see a lot of vacant buildings, dilapidated buildings along the way. Why aren't we refurbishing those? Why aren't we creating incentives for the developers to refurbish and rebuild there where it's already existing. So we don't increase our footprint, we're not knocking down more trees, we're not harming the environment. Obviously, it was built and set up with the idea in mind of having all those utilities and everything available. So why not just provide incentives to the developers to reuse these properties? To me, that just makes sense. It'll lower the cost. And likely you'll be able to have lower cost housing for our next generation, even create workforce housing. You know, a lot of times when you use the term affordable housing, everybody starts, oh, Section 8, oh, we can't have that. No, no, no. That's not what it is, for one thing. But there's a project, I don't know if you've heard about this, project right in East Patchogue, on Grove. So it's on Main Street where the old hardware store, right next to the Salvation Army. They took down the hardware store, it's open right there. They're gonna build a workforce housing project there with about 55 units. It's gonna be beautiful. They're great plans. And for once, I finally saw a, call it affordable or workforce housing project that is actually affordable. When I saw the prices, again, they were indexing it to the area median income. And you were taking a percentage of that. So it's not Section 8, you have to be working, you have to have an income and all, but you do get a nice break there, and the prices were actually extremely affordable. This is how we're gonna keep our next generation here. Getting them the opportunities, getting them the training, career opportunities, and allowing them to be able to afford to stay here. So we've got to be smarter when we do, you know, when you ask what's the big challenge, in addition to the financial, it's being smarter about how we look forward, how we plan for the future. I think that's one of our biggest challenges.
There, we spoke earlier about, which is a great conversation, about how do we make our local elected officials, town, otherwise, more aware, because even though we don't necessarily go down directly to funding, to Linda's point, they are voicing their region, right? And so we had obviously do that. But as you mentioned, you know, we do a lot of advocacy work proposing specific topics. And a lot of times we'll run into topics that takes us a long time to get over the finish line because of the number of New York City or city-based elected officials that don't know what goes on. Can you talk about that dynamic at all? And is there any recommendation to how, in a similar way or a similar fashion, we can get them on our side a little bit?
I think the approach is, look, a lot of the leadership is from the city, and that's not, there is a different dynamic. I mean, New York we're really a three-tier kind of state here. You've got upstate, which is one. It's just a whole different type of living. Then you've got the city. Then you've got Long Island, which is kind of or the downstate. You got Long Island, you got Staten Island, you got Westchester, which is kind of a hybrid of both, you know? And so it is challenging sometimes because a lot of times you spoke about Krupski. So Al Krupski.
I didn't mean to throw
No,
him
no,
under the bus.
not on the bus. This is gonna be a good thing. Al is actually, his family is, they're longtime farmers, out in the East End. They're very, very, long tradition of farming out there. And, you know, we do things in Albany where upstate there are plenty of farms. Here, there are actually more farms than people think. In fact, Suffolk County is in the top 5 agricultural counties in New York State. Out of 62, we're top 5. But the city, they'll pass laws, they'll pass legislation and restrictions and things like this about farming. And you're kind of scratching your head going, really? How many farms have you been to lately down there? It's just because they think they're doing well, but they don't really know. And I think there needs to be more communication. Now, I will tell you this. In the past few years, there's been a little more collaboration. You don't hear about this. You never hear about this. Democrats and Republicans working together. Oh, no, you can't have that. But we actually do. We actually get along. I was just on a Zoom meeting yesterday about social services with the chairwoman, Senator Prasad. She's a Democrat, I'm a Republican, but we get along great. We work together, we understand where we're coming from. When we have differences, we talk it out. But lately, over the past couple of years, we've had more and more of our colleagues inviting other colleagues to their districts. So we'll bring some of the city folks upstate or out to Long Island, say, let's tour, take a look at the farms, understand what we're doing out here. You think they're harming animals when they're doing this. Actually, they're not. They're taking very good care of them. And here's how they do it. And when they see it, it really does open their eyes. So I think we need more of that. And likewise, it's a good idea for us to go in the city. You know, visit some of the shelters and visit some of the issues that they're facing. So we have a better understanding too. For example, we drive everywhere out here. Public transportation, what is that? You know, in the city, that's all there is. You know, we have to have a better understanding too. So I think we're starting to see a little bit more of that, which I think will benefit everyone. If we can do, you know, keep it up and do more.
So if you ever have the opportunity to invite some of your colleagues to one of our post programs. I think it's beneficial.
Yeah, I think if they see it, I think they'll have a better understanding of it. Anyone out there in Cyberland with a question?
So can I ask, what led you to run the assembly? Just being a business owner, football player?
So frustration is what led me to, I was married at the time and my stepson, my favorite TV show was The West Wing. So you know, every Wednesday night, man, I'm parked right there, just loving it. I'm watching it, I'm commenting on it, and I'm getting frustrated. I follow politics, you know, I'm watching the news and I'm all upset. And he turns to me and he says, you know, you could sit here and yell at the TV, or maybe you could do something about it. I'm like, really? Okay. You know what? Good for you. So that's when I said, I'm gonna get involved. So I happened to be playing softball at the time with the chief of staff of Congressman Felix Frucci. And his name is Jesse Garcia. Jesse Garcia is now the chairman of the Suffolk County and Brookhaven GOP. So we were playing softball and I said, how can I get involved? So we got me involved. I became a committee man and worked on some campaigns, then ran a campaign and ran another campaign. And they said, what about you? Do you want to run? I said, not yet, not ready. Still working on my business, but thank you. And then 2 years later, I said, yep, I'm ready. let's, because honestly, I got frustrated at how business unfriendly New York is. New York traditionally finishes at the bottom of the rankings when it comes to being business friendly. We just aren't, not at all. Perfect example. I spoke earlier about all the federal funds for COVID. We have a lot of extra money, literally billions of dollars of extra money. So during COVID, when all the businesses were shutting down, they were laying people off and everybody was unemployed. And they said, we don't have enough money in the state unemployment coffers to pay everybody unemployment. So this has only happened a handful of times in the history of the United States, but when it does, we borrow from the federal government. So that's what we did. Us and about 40 something other states all had to borrow from the federal government to pay unemployment. Here's the catch. We got to pay it back. So technically you have to pay it back with interest. What the federal government did, which the last time they didn't do this, they did charge the interest. This time they said, look, this was because of COVID. This wasn't anybody's fault. If you can pay back what you borrowed. So once we got through COVID, we got back on our feet. If you can pay back what you borrowed within 1 year, there's no interest. Just pay us back what you borrowed. 39 other states took the extra federal funds that they had and they paid it back. We weren't one of them. We were one of a handful, and we had the money. We had the money. We borrowed roughly, I think at the time it was about $10 billion. And we had 15, 16 billion in the coffers. And the governor just said, oh, we're going to hold on to that for a rainy day or something. So you know how we're paying it back? Every single business now pays the unemployment insurance assessment surcharge. That is on top of the unemployment insurance tax that you pay. And we're already taxed at the highest rate the federal government allows us to tax businesses for unemployment. Because a lot of people out there don't also realize that the employees do not pay into unemployment. The employer does. So when somebody says, well, I'll go on unemployment, I've earned it, no, you really haven't. You haven't paid a penny into unemployment. So the employer does. Anyway, the employers are paying the unemployment insurance again at the highest rate, but now they tacked on the unemployment insurance assessment surcharge. So every single employee, and it doesn't sound like a lot unless you're a company with a couple hundred employees, but you're paying about just under $30 a year per employee extra. So again, somebody with 100 employees, what are you paying? Several $1,000s extra. Now, here's the kicker. That money is not paying back the loan. We're paying that back just through our tax and everything else. That money is paying the interest. We paid almost $200 million in interest last year to the federal government. So think about it for a second. That's like a loan shark saying, I'm going to put you out of business. Then I'm going to lend you the money. Then you're going to pay me back and you're going to pay me interest. And that's exactly what happened. But I don't blame the federal government. They gave us the window. We could have done it. I blame the governor for holding on to the money. So now it's on the backs of the businesses. And for 10 years, those businesses will be paying this until we finally pay off the interest and the principal. So it's going to cost us, I mean, literally billions of dollars more than it should have on top of what we're paying back. So that's an example of how we're not friendly to business. We really aren't. We need to do a better job. That was a really long story for that. There was no bright side. There's still some business here. No, but you know what? Here's the bright side. Here's the bright side. Is you guys are teaching the next generation that will keep those businesses here. You know, it's about the workforce. It's about making sure you have a well-trained, solid workforce. And what you're doing is creating that. So that's why I love what you do. I admire everything you do here. I really do. You've definitely got an advocate here. I will, as they say, go to the mattresses for you. I will fight tooth and nail to get you whatever you need, because again, I talk about the difference between spending and investing. Investing in BOCES, it's an investment that we get a return.
We were talking about TAP before, and speaking of this, is I know that the state, assuming college tuitions, now they're indexed every year, correct? And exactly, I don't know exactly how that works.
They go through us and we say yes or no, whether they can raise state tuition and everything. It has to be approved.
No, I mean, when you don't have to pay the amount of income you would have,
Right.
that you don't have to pay that tuition.
Yes, it's indexed according to your salary, but it's broken down. There's a cap in how much you can receive, and there's but there is a cap in how much you can receive. We just raised that, not by much, but a little bit. So I think it's, don't quote me, it's something like 5,600 a year is our, I think, that it's capped at.
But that's not indexed geographically.
Not geographically, no. I wish it was. Like I said, I think it would be much fairer. I mean, I'd like to see most things when it comes to having thresholds where your income qualifies you. I'd like to see all of those things indexed by the cost of living, because things like childcare, we are in a crisis right now when it comes to childcare, and it's not just what people think. People think, oh, that's just because it's so expensive. Yes, it is expensive. That's one part of the crisis. The other part of the crisis is we just don't have enough. We don't have enough childcare. And of the facilities we do have, we can't hold the employees. We're not paying them enough. So I just had a big roundtable on childcare and the future and what we can do to try to help. And we came up with a couple of pretty good ideas that I passed on to the governor, and, she was listening, so. And one of the things, we actually did make a change this year, to increase the levels that you qualify. So increase the thresholds for qualifying for help from the government to pay for your child care. So she is listening, but she didn't. My plan was you either do one or the other as far as the federal poverty level. You can either do 300% of that or index it to the AMI, whichever is higher. She just went with the 300% of federal. I'm still pushing. I still want to get that because it would help. If we did it to the AMI, it would help on families much more. It would raise that threshold. I think it's almost $10,000 per household. It would raise the threshold. So a lot more people would qualify.
It seems that at least in East End, some of the smaller districts are beginning their preschool at age 3, which basically, I mean, I don't give you my opinion, but basically it seems a great deal of that has to do with the fact that there, especially in the communities, there really isn't much as far as childcare.
Right.
So some of the schools have started at age 3 preschool.
Yeah. Well, that was part of it, like the universal free day and everything like this being pushed a lot, and it's spreading more and more. But there's still gaps there. Yeah, and the cost to care for infants is much more because there's a ratio too, that you must have infant to childcare provider. It's a 4-to-1, where you're only allowed for each provider 4 infants. That's it. So it's and understandably, I mean, they take a lot more care, so you really have to pay attention. So that is a challenge. We came up with a couple of ideas, like, for example, and this kind of ties into what we're talking about the whole night, is career training, right? Too many times people think of childcare providers as glorified babysitters. They're not. They're much more than that. But let's make them much more than that. Let's have classes to certify them. Let's have them reach levels where they're not quite, at the level of teaching, but kind of, if you will. So you're kind of in between. Here's a teacher, here's a babysitter. You're kind of right here, and you can move up the realm. When you get certified, you're now more valuable. So now we raise the pay, and then you look at that more like a career rather than a stepping stone. So if we can do that, so then you say, well, how do we pay for it? Well, we also came up with the idea. Well, how you have health savings plans with your employer. What if we had employers contribute to a child care savings plan? But it's not just child care. You can actually carry it over and carry it all the way through until they get to college and spend it on that too if they want. But have a savings plan that the employers contribute to. The benefit to them is that's a great benefit to say you're providing to your employees. So you provide a benefit like that, you probably will get the higher end employees to come to work for you. But we can also provide some governmental incentives for the companies to participate. I even had an idea of maybe, like, for example, the Outback Industrial Association. They have the largest industrial park on the East Coast. How about we put a couple of childcare facilities in that park? And then any one of the members that belong to the HIA get a 10% discount if they use them. And then again, tie it in where the government kind of makes up the difference as long as they are reaching a certain level of providing enough care. So everybody benefits there, and there's no real loser, because if we're getting more people back in the workforce, we're creating more tax revenue and creating more productivity. So the problem right now is you've got parents who will literally sit down, put pen to paper and say, I can't go back to work. It will literally cost us money to go back to work, and I don't get to see my child grow up. You got a choice of seeing your child take the first steps, or ride the bike for the first time, or say mommy or daddy the first time, or go to work and pay somebody else to see it. What are you going to do? If there's no benefit, financial benefit for you to do it, why would you do it? And that's what we're finding. It's getting to that point where some are saying, I'm just not going to do it. I can't. But then they're struggling. So we've got to help. We really do. And like I said, if we can help as a government, we benefit. Because if they go back in the workforce, they're paying payroll taxes, they're paying income taxes. Plus the productivity goes up, the companies are more staffed and they're willing to stay, so everybody wins. We just have to work together to do it. But that's again, getting back to being creative, thinking outside of the box a little bit. But that's where the business side of my experience comes in, of thinking of, you know, from a different viewpoint.
So you have any advice for us when we come to meet colleagues?
This year, show the return on investment. That's the biggest thing you can do. Show how what you do keeps our young people here. Show how the graduates actually are working. They're getting employed, they're getting jobs, they're staying here and they're contributing. Because if we can show, again, I'll say it over and over, my colleagues get sick of me saying it. We can't spend, we have to invest. This is an investment. And if you show that return on investment, then you show why. Don't cut us, because if you cut us, you're cutting yourself. You're hurting yourself. You're hurting our kids and you're hurting yourself. So don't do that. Invest in us. You probably want to put more into us so we can grow more, because the more we grow, we train more of our next generation, who is our next generation of workers. So that would be my advice. When you go up there, that's what you focus on. Focus on the return on investment that you bring. More questions? Everybody still awake?
Advice for the dying, sort of that.
Stop.
Should we try to bring back 10-0?
That would be interesting. Ticket sales there, right?
Yeah.
Sure, Senator, thank you again for being here. It's always great to hear from you. We appreciate the partnership, collaboration. You'll be seeing us again in the near future. We do plan on coming out and visit with our students again, so we'll be up there visiting you and your colleagues. But you know, and thank you for your suggestion of you know, your offer to help bring some elected officials to our programs, and we'll certainly be following up on that. I was texting people very good, making sure they're taking notes. So thank you for that, and again, thanks for being here. Thank you. Nothing much to snag that.
Oh, look at that. Good stuff. Well, that's what coffee is. It's pretty hungry.